someone responded to a video I posted. Someone asked me to do a video about Christopher Busby, not professor. He calls himself a professor. Runs the Busby Laboratory Foundation, or Busby Foundation, and sold snake oil formulas for Fukushima children in Europe. Professor Busby's views on health effects of radiation exposure, this person now says, are not solely based upon research on one Russian investigator. I'm not actually addressing that in this because I'm going to do a what about and a deferment. He is the author of 2 for-profit self-published books, director of Green Audit Limited, a private dormant shell company, who endorsed his formulas without divulging it was his. A foundation for Children of Fukushima that marketed, because it's its purpose, a useless mineral supplement to mitigate radioisotope ingestion by defiantly saying anything non-scientific and non-medically accurate concerning radiation, exposure to toxins, or any other damn thing, which is what we now call salesmanship. He claims a conspiracy to spread radioactive contamination throughout Japan by its government exists for no good reason that would actually accomplish nothing, and made up some bullshit reasons for it. Because screaming a conspiracy theory like this is part and parcel of getting people to show up who do the reactionary behavior of contrarianism. This is part 1 of what this asshole is. He doesn't give a shit if children die. He only gives a shit if he gets money. And his method for dealing with anybody pointing out that he just simply said something that wasn't true, all the way up to pointing out that he literally set up shell companies that were shell companies to endorse his product and lie. His response to that is to try to shut people up by suing them. I'm too poor to pay attention. Fuck you. Go ahead, sue me. Next, yeah, he'll flag the video. He's going to flag the previous one. Fuck him. And you assholes showing up shilling for this guy, fuck you too. Contrarianism is the polar opposite of reality-based anything, much less science. So I'm not basing it just on some Russian investigator. It was one of 100 points. So I'm going to deflect by saying that Russian investigator he cited was debunked. You won't acknowledge that because you're a salesman. The sound of salesman. Waptek's comment about Busby claiming that lower radiation levels cause more cancers or death than higher radiation level is misreading or deliberately distortion of what he has said in public and in scientific literature. Counterpoint, he's not part of scientific literature because his work has been tossed out because it's horse shit. Second, that's not an oversimplification. That's what he fucking said. Next, part of it's true. If you're exposed to a specific level of radiation, your likelihood of getting cancer increases pretty linearly. Then there's this one cutoff point where you get exposed to a specific amount of radiation of a specific variety for a specific duration, and a whole bunch of other variables. Like, let's say, during a thermonuclear explosion over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, during which, instead of it damaging the cells so that they can become cancerous, the cells simply die. You experience mass cell death, and this makes it to where they don't have the ability to go cancerous because the cells are fucking dead. Cancer is caused by cells that are damaged enough that they don't work anymore correctly, but they're still functional enough to keep trying to divide. And then out of a tiny minority of those, some of them will have the part of them damaged that controls how fast they divide, how much energy they consume, and whether or not they turn into an extra head. But above that level, the cancer risk goes back up. There is this, but the thing is, he shows on his graph a major spike, lots of differential on a logarithmic graph. Some of you already know the logarithmic. He phonied his results. And his complaint was background radiation, or slightly above it, is more dangerous than Fukushima, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Because his original complaint was, well, you need to get my herbal elixir of water and paint thinner to cure your kids from having cancer they don't have yet because of the radiation. And then, of course, a couple of days later, Oh, it's literally just above background everywhere else on the planet and actually not showing up anywhere? Oh, well, that's worse, because we're doing homeopathic lying. Sort of like lying a little bit, little white lies, fixes the big ones, right? No. Next claim that is made against my video, pointing out rapidly a lot of things that you're focusing on to avoid the others. He's been clear for many decades on the health effects of internal exposure to radiation levels, something that the International Atomic Agency and even the World Health Organization has almost entirely ignored. My citations included them acknowledging the subject matter and saying it doesn't fucking matter because he lied on his data sources about what he was trying to propose, and again, he created a shill company, tried to sell poultices, and violated every form of ethics possible, and kept yelling for the children. Do you work for one of the companies he hired to run interference for him? Shill. Or worse, are you a contrarian that literally wants to believe these things for some fucking reason? Okay, let's try this. You live in Japan, the only country on Earth that was literally hit with atomic warheads in an act of war. So, when some sort of nuclear disaster happens, what do you do? What they did. So what do you do to try to make them look like shit because you hate them for some reason, or because you're using them as something to bounce ideas off of so you can sell your poultices off the net? Claim that they're killing people by saying literally the polar opposite of reality, because that works. You know, you might believe that if you pour this into your lungs and fill your lungs with coffee, it'll drown you. But I'm here to tell you it'll turn you into Aquaman. Some of you are looking up coffee lung enema right now because I just said it. Do it. Actually, don't. It'll probably end up being a Japanese porn movie. Anyway, God, no. Anyway, I hurt my head. The risk model, as he has repeatedly highlighted, is based on external exposure to ionizing radiation. Counterpoint. No, it isn't. It's only using that one for external exposure. For internal exposure, like swallowing or inhaling any form of radioactive material, they use the internal model in all cases. And I also pointed that out in the previous video. The reason we mostly, not only, use the external model for radiation exposure is because that is the most pertinent one when you're dealing with claims about radioactive material getting onto people's skin or whatever. Because most of the time it's not through inhaled particulate matter that you can test. I know that sounds contrarian and all, but it isn't. It also works rather well because it also works for internal model because they're both tied to each other. I've never seen anybody quote just the external model. That's a bullshit lie. You're a fucktard. No, I'm not going to be polite this week. I don't feel like it. Thank you. A model predominantly based on data from Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombings at the end of World War II. Yes, and that model also included internal exposure, hence the reason we even talk about iodine. You do know that part, right? Or is that the part he didn't show you? Did you notice that he only presents the parts of it that he wants you to see and forgets the other 40 pages of what he was bringing up as a document? Mine points to the actual document and doesn't edit.
Especially if I'm young and we're not living together.
That's what we call half-truthing. But the truthiness factor is what you want. So let's see how loud people internally radiate. So anyway, here we go. Sorry, I had to do a joke about my bowels. I have trouble with my bowels and my consonants. So anyway, yeah. Internal exposure to radiation, ionizing and non-ionizing, no, not non-ionizing, drives different health effects in the general population. Counterpoint. The model you're quoting is a misquote he gave you, if you even look this shit up, because it doesn't just do external. Because you're a fucking idiot and don't look it up. Exposure to internal radiation can lodge in the body organs and irradiate tissue at enormous local... No, contamination in the body can do that. There are very few elements that you can irradiate that will then become radioactive for very long, but some of them do. I dare you to post a complete list of all the elements and materials that will become sympathetically radioactive when you hit them with radiation. I want you to do that. You can include materials science in this. You could learn. That was also in the video. But it's not radiation that bounces around and no, that's contamination being lodged in the body. Why are you so internal radiation? No, it's contamination. You're misusing the words. Shill. Genetic damage also includes the splitting of DNA chains. That is one of the problems with online commentary. Anyone can say anything anytime, including myself. Yes, thank you very much for admitting that you're a fucktard. The double-strand DNA double-strand effects, yes. But radiation isn't something that pulsates and wobbles around in your body going, no, that's a Pac-Man video game. You need to step away from the console. Contamination like, radioactive iodine and uranium and that sort of shit getting in the body can keep radiating. We already know about that. And again, that's listed with the external-internal model grouping. You ignored the part of that said internal and external. The reason they're on separate grouping pages, you have to treat them very differently. External radiation exposure, you clean the person, and then, mysteriously, check for any radiation source because it's still on the surface. Emission from radiation, not contaminants. Radiation is not the same as contamination. Fallout is not radiation. Fallout is material that is contaminated with radioactive material. And if you inhale it or swallow it, you have to fucking get rid of it. One of the methods for doing it is to bind it out with something that will be chemically attracted to it and get it out of the person's body as fast as possible, because your body will try to break it down and incorporate it into your skeleton. At that point, it becomes a really big problem getting it out. That's why you can actually take care of this, because you can also detect it. If it's in the lungs or digestive tract, one of the methods, I'm going to list them, is, how I said you wash the person's body off and then check for radiation? What do you do with a human being? Well, you get them to hawk up all the hairballs they can out of their lungs. It's mucus. And the other one is to make their digestive tract produce lots of mucus and let them empty out. Yeah, it's actually the similar procedure. And yes, there is a soap and water procedure for the digestive tract. Sounds just like you don't want to do it. You might have to. Yeah, people who go through decontamination training learn this. Not that I know anything about it. You obviously don't. To hide in the shadows and take cheap shots at academics is very easy to do. Yes, he's fucking done it continually because every academic pointed out that he was just fucking wrong, and he hides in the shadows and bullshits. And he won't let you critique him or respond to him because he's afraid of peer review. Especially if one lacks evidence and knowledge on the particular issues. He's an ignorant asshole who's trying to sell poultices that cause people to believe that they were going to cure their children of something that wasn't actually happening by him claiming homeopathically that radiation at lower levels is worse than high-level radiation because contrarianism sells. So I thank you for your commentary, proving once again, there are some people who are staunchly supporters of anti-reality. And or you might be a commie. I just say, spins wheel, communist, MAGA. Sometimes I call people a Hillary supporter because it'll piss them off. You voted Hillary. And Trump. And LaRouche. Skadoosh. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And you're still wrong.